As I began to draw, happily distracted by the girls before me, I had not seen Miss Lisa Monroe walk up the steps and stood slightly further up from behind me to catch me at what I was doing. I became suddenly aware that I was being watched. I immediately closed up my sketchbook. I was not too sure exactly just how much of my quick sketches Miss Monroe had seen, and I had done quite a few in such a short space of time. Oh, how easy it was for me to just then make up positions of my own. Marvin. I am surprised how truly dedicated to making such intense notes of today's lessons, remarked Miss Monroe in a subtle tone of voice. All of the girls looked in my direction in mild surprise. Miss Monroe smiled as she then said, not to me, but more in the to all of her girls in her class, I am pretty sure that the rest of these girls would like to see the notes you have made. My face turned pale with horror as I cried out, no. But it was too late. Miss Monroe had already snatched up my sketchbook. Just then, by stroke of sheer luck, the home time bell rang and I looked at Miss Monroe in desperation. My notes are not as yet complete, Miss Monroe, and I do so want to make such a good job of them. My pleading was pathetic, which I think that Miss Monroe enjoyed a little, as she looked at me still holding onto my sketchbook, but as the rest of the girls all began to pack their things and looked in Miss Monroe's direction, it was clear that they had no real desire to wait and stay behind so that Miss Monroe could show to them my so-called notes. Miss Monroe sighed, but she handed back over to me my sketchbook. Very well, but be sure to finish them by the time you get back home, and don't forget, you still have your other studies to do, as you are still behind the rest of the class. I looked at Miss Monroe with a look of dread. In truth, I had not as yet so far really had written anything in my essays books at all. I had to start at least to fill up one of them to have something to show to Miss Monroe, although she did not openly say so. I just knew that she was expecting to see one of my essay books. I was grateful of the fact that the day was Friday, which gave me between Saturday and Sunday to get an essay book completed. All filed with study work, or Miss Monroe would surely skin me alive. I had to hope also that one filled and completed essay book will be enough to at least convince Miss Monroe that I was actually doing some hard studying. Truth be told, all this stuff about feminization was making me feel sick. It was a complete load of tripe. I had to somehow find a way to leave college and my home time for good. But there would have to be a good reason for it. I had none, but I knew that I had to do something, and soon. For the time being, I relaxed in my flat. I was sat on my sofa drinking my usual cup of Earl Grey tea, of course. I was also watching a superb game of cricket, when suddenly my doorbell rang. I most certainly was not expecting anyone, and I pretty much do not get door-to-door salesmen calling my flat, as it is of the utmost extreme private property. I got up from my sofa to answer the door, of course, and to my confused bewilderment, stood there at my doorway was quite a handsome fellow with sleek short black hair and green eyes. He was very smartly dressed too. He was wearing a very striking, dazzling three-piece white suit, white tie, and white shoes even. The young fellow's looks were like mine, flawless. He had only with him something I had immediately recognized, a sleek black large, yet thin folder. It was of course a portfolio, but I had the common sense not to say anything about this. "Hello, how may I help you?" I asked the young lad. He seemed to be by appearance to be near to exactly my age.